If you ate 8 fiber bars in one sitting, it's pretty safe to say you probably freaked up. We'll get into that story in just a bit, but first, today I freaked up by telling an old friend I didn't see him at his own wife's funeral. So last week, I seriously freaked up. I was at a hardware store looking for a part and I couldn't find it, so I grabbed a random worker who was walking by to ask where it was. As soon as the guy stopped, I recognized him as someone from my high school friend group. He was never my best friend, but we hung out a lot with the group and I liked him. I hadn't seen him for years at that point. Not for any reason, our lives just went in different directions. So he shows us where the part was and we start talking, how you been, etc. He asks me if I'm in touch with any of the people we used to hang out with. I tell him not really, but once in a while. It's been almost 25 years since we graduated, so not a surprise. Here's where I freaked up. I suddenly remember what I did to see the whole group somewhere a few years back. So I say, "Oh yeah, I did see everybody at a funeral a few years ago. Were you there? I don't remember seeing you there." He kind of gets a quizzical look on his face and asks me if it was one friend's funeral, a guy who OD'd a while back. No, I know it wasn't his. I was out of the country for that one. Quizzical look intensifies. Right at that second, it hit me. The funeral I'm half remembering was for this guy's wife who died 5 to 6 years ago of cancer. She was very young and left him with 2 young kids. It was really sad. I went because my other friends were all in town from all over and I wanted to show solidarity even if I hadn't been in touch. Realizing this made my stomach drop and I just wanted to disappear. Since we weren't that close and I hadn't seen him for so long, I didn't want to just be like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. That was your wife who died and I forgot about." So I kinda just said, "Well, anyway, I'm sure I'll see you around," and left. I felt so bad, but I judged in the moment, perhaps wrongly, that feigning ignorance and looking like a jerk was better than opening an old wound at work for someone I'd barely seen since high school. I'm sorry, man. I do feel like crap. Yeah, an honest slip-up and immediate remorse. I don't know how else you can really suggest handling the situation, particularly if you weren't very close. So, condolences to his family, his wife, and I think you handled that the best you could. J. Will's RVA responded, "I had a friend named Taylor. She married this dude, Kyle. Unfortunately, she passed away suddenly around the start of COVID, which is also right around when me and my wife split. Maybe 2 months later, I get a text from a different Kyle, asking how I'm doing and what's up with me. So I type up an update that obviously includes a bit of complaining, lamenting about my wife leaving me and send it over. Then, to my horror, I realize it's not the other Kyle. I had just complained about my very much alive wife leaving me to the man who wasn't even able to have a proper funeral for his wife because of lockdowns. Also, hey there, my name is Brendan, and if you guys are enjoying these Today I Effed Up videos, it would be so awesome if you left a like or a comment if you're listening to our podcast. That being said, our next story is, Today I Effed Up by making my girlfriend breakfast in bed. I know, Reddit, I know. I have somehow managed to fumble my way into finding a woman who seems fine with putting up with my crap. She's also just about as clumsy as me, and managed to trip over something and fell onto a laundry basket and wound up hurting herself pretty good. Bad enough to take a couple days off work. Naturally, she came over for a couple days so she would have help and someone to whine at. It's still early days, so we're still learning a lot from each other. Things like if she doesn't feel good, she likes breakfast in bed. I discovered this by having a foot applied to my hip and being told, "I'm hungry, I hurt." She didn't quite launch me out of bed, and I was mostly awake, but in her defense, I do sometimes need a clue brick rather than subtlety. There may have been some more polite requests before that I snoozed, not like an alarm. She also probably would have just used a hand on my shoulder, but I was snoozing on the side she'd injured. I promptly fell the rest of the way out of bed and shambled my way into the kitchen to make something breakfast-like happen. It then occurred to me I have no idea what she wants for breakfast. So I medicated and tracked down some caffeine and then popped my head back in and confirmed she wasn't going to make me scramble for a YouTube cook-along. Eggs and sausage, please. So I threw some sausage on the pan, belatedly remembered the nonstick spray, and got to cooking. All 4 sausages came out looking pretty good. I had one just to make sure they were cooked all the way. Then it was time for eggs. I added 2 for her and 4 for me. Added some milk to make them fluffy and then got to scrambling. By the time the eggs were done, another sausage had been consumed. It was a 2-pack. Y'all are my witnesses. I then plated everything up and delivered it with some orange juice. I got a kiss and a thank you, and then it was time to do the work thing while she crocheted in bed, snuggled with my dog, who wasn't just there waiting for her to look away from the yarn ball. Nope. Did you spot the freak up? 2 hours later, the dog flies out of bed with all the grace of a dead bird. Thump, ba 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 ba. Suddenly, I had a very frightened dog wrapped around my ankles and absolutely no idea what had happened. I managed to make eye contact with my dog, and he had the 1,000-yard stare. That dog had witnessed something. I stood up and went to go check on things. The dog stayed where he was, which was odd. Normally, he's my shadow unless there's company. Coming from down the hall, I can hear a wheezing sound. Immediately, my concern grows, and I hustle down the hall thinking the worst had happened. And I encountered a wall unlike any I had experienced previously. It wasn't a physical wall. It felt like one, but it wasn't. It was a smell so powerful, it felt like someone had punched me right in the sinuses. I paused to gird myself for what is to come, and brave the heinous odor to enter my own bedroom. And there she lays, seeming to laugh and whine at the same time. All of it coming out as an odd wheezing sound. Are you okay, babe? Says I. She looks at me, tears in her eyes, and nods. You added milk to the eggs, didn't you? She manages to utter between gasps for breath. I nod, and then it dawns on me. This is a smell I've encountered before. I just repressed the memory. Yeah, oh God, no. No. The look of dawning shock and horror must have been pretty funny on my face, because she doubles over in laughter again, and then stops suddenly, just freezes in place. Her eyes get big, and she starts flailing around in the covers, practically falling out of bed and sprinting to the bathroom. Injury be danged. My sheets and blankets are now in the washing machine, and she hasn't come out of the bathroom. It's been almost an hour. My dog and I are sharing his dog bed under my desk, both of us unwilling to acknowledge what had just happened. I mean, if this is as bad as it's being played up to be, I don't think there's any saving those sheets. You may just want to get a new set. Like, if you're literally willing to sleep in a dog bed, then get back in that bed. It might just be a lost cause. Just trash the sheets and start over with a clean slate. Emphasis on the word clean. A keen-eyed guy replied, "The woman I dated before my wife liked to go drinking once in a while. Not every weekend, but every so often to blow off steam. I came from a long line of alcoholics, so I refrain and would often be DD for her and our friends. One night she wanted to stay way later than we had agreed upon and decided to take a cab home. We weren't too far from the event location, so she could have walked too. I was already asleep when she stumbled into the apartment, just plastered. She manages to get her clothes off and a nightshirt on and climbs into bed, instantly asleep. I'm someone who stays awake for a minute if I get woke up, so I was watching Food Network for about 30 minutes when the most horrendous farts started coming from the other side of the bed. It seemed like just a good ripper at first, but quickly took on a sloppy, wet sound as I slept from the bed, knowing what was about to happen. It actually took me a minute to wake her up, made her deal with the dirty bedding while I laughed my butt off putting fresh sheets on. Luckily, our unit had a washer and dryer in it, so she didn't have to take them far. She was super embarrassed by it, but also super apologetic. Our next story is, today I effed up by dropping my son's Lego Millenium Falcon. There's not much more to tell than the title, really. My youngest was dragging his heels getting ready for school this morning, and I was trying to get him sorted, and when I asked him where his jumper was, he said it was on his shelf. I reached over and grabbed the end of the offending article and pulled, not realizing that the Lego Millenium Falcon that he'd only recently finished building from Christmas was sitting partly on it. So I tug, and in slow motion, the Falcon slides, and I quickly reach out to grab it before it hits the floor, only to flip it up against the wall with even more force than the gravity pulling it down. Smash! I turn around and my son's eyes are filling with tears, and I feel like the worst human being ever. He runs out of the room to his mom, who's getting ready for work, while I stand there like an absolute idiot. He then refused to let me speak to him before his older siblings walked him to school, still sobbing away. I feel absolutely rotten, and even though I know it's not the end of the world, I know full well I've got a lot to do to make this up to him. Suggestions would be appreciated. Simple solution I would suggest, rebuild it with him and then buy him another Lego set on top of that, another Star Wars thing that he can build or you guys can build together. And also maybe take him to the park, get him some ice cream. I mean, really work on buttering him up for about a week or so and he'll be fine. Lomex Fi replied, While this is a today I effed up that you can make up for by rebuilding it with him, this is also a today I effed up on his part. It may be a hard lesson to learn, but you can teach him. This is why we put things away where they belong, because if we don't, accidents happen. So next time, let's put the jumper away where it belongs, and don't put important things where they can end up getting broken. Turn it from a freak up into a teachable moment. He'll be okay soon enough. Kids are resilient and bounce back quick. Let him learn from this one. Kiwi Papa Bear replied, important question, is this the 7,500-piece Ultimate Collector Series Millennium Falcon, or one of the other ones? Because that's the difference between an hour or two of father-son bonding and like 24 solid hours of bonding, assuming the pieces neatly sorted themselves by color and type when it fell. Our next story is, today I effed up by not remembering that the baby monitor works on Wi-Fi. Yesterday afternoon, my 35-year-old female, husband, 31-year-old male, watched our two kids, 3 years old and 1.5 years old, over his lunch break while I went to my doctor appointment. Over that time, the internet became very spotty. It would run well enough for YouTube to keep playing mostly, but once I came home and he went back upstairs, his work laptop couldn't function at a reasonable pace. He timed it, and he had to wait 5 minutes for a file to save from his email to his desktop. He had to periodically check his voicemails because it wouldn't tell him if he was even receiving a call, let alone a voice message. So he calls up the internet company, who say we need a new router and will overnight ship one. Today, my husband had to bring his whole work setup into the office where he gets a better connection. The new router shows up, hubby comes home and installs it. The agent waits on the phone to make sure everything works and that we have the new Wi-Fi and password. Everything is good. We swap our phone, our gaming consoles, and our laptops. Everything works. Tonight, our kids have been in bed for a while and my husband and I are getting ready for bed ourselves. I'm up the stairs first and can see that the kids' light is on in the bedroom. I call out to my husband to get up there quick as he's been the favorite for when the kids have had bad dreams. He goes in, sees something strange on the floor. It's vomit. My 3-year-old threw up all over himself, his comfort blanket, comforter, his sheets, and the giant stuffed animal and blanket that my husband uses when he has to sleep in there. I don't know how my 1.5-year-old is able to sleep through all that, but thank God he did. My husband took him downstairs to clean him up while I cleaned up the room. My husband asked me if my phone was going off as we have our monitor connected to notify us of movement and sound. That's when it hit me. I never reconnected the monitor to the new Wi-Fi. After getting them both set up in the spare room, the mattress is still drying and I need to vacuum the carpet for chunks, and getting the laundry going on heavy duty, I reconnected the monitor and scrolled through the recordings to figure out when this all happened. He threw up at 10:30 p.m. We headed upstairs at 11:15 p.m. Y'all, my baby sat in his own bile for 45 minutes. Honest mistake, the baby's never going to remember this when they get older, but you certainly will, and you won't allow it to happen again. So, I think that this is definitely an opportunity to learn and remember that, things do reset when you change the Wi-Fi or lose power. Turdetoit responded, pro tip for the next time you have to swap a router. Change the Wi-Fi name and password to the same values as the old router. Everything will automatically reconnect. Our next story is, today I effed up by calling a family's recently deceased son a effing moron. I didn't realize how long this story is until I typed it out, so sorry for the long read. For context, I'm a mailman who works out of the Midwest. I don't have to tell my fellow carriers in this area that the past 3 months have been rough. Not only has my city had snow for 3 weeks straight now, but Christmas package volume hasn't gone down very much. I've been working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday for these 3 months, just trying to keep up with the volume. It's also been very cold, and all around I've been extremely stressed out and tired. Well, yesterday was no different, as I was told first thing in the morning that I had 2 routes that I had to get done on my own, plus any packages when I got back. Not only that, but my ProMaster, a bigger mail truck, had been taken on Sunday for maintenance, and I'd have to take a much smaller Metris car. This means I'll have much less space for all the mail and packages, but Metris cannot drive through any amount of snow. Not joking, a light dusting on the road will result in you getting stuck. So I was already tired and very frustrated. Fast forward to halfway through my day, and I'm delivering packages to a nicer neighborhood. I see the house that I'm dropping a package at doesn't have any open spots to park on the street, except for in front of their neighbor's fairly long driveway. It's not uncommon for us carriers to block a driveway for a minute to just drop off a package, so I don't think anything of it. Well, I couldn't see the end of the driveway due to the other cars, and as I turned to park, I realized that at the end of their driveway is a pretty large pile of snow. I try to brake and turn, but it was too late. I land right in the middle of this snowy pile, completely stuck. I try in vain to get myself out, but for safety reasons, we aren't allowed to dig ourselves out, so I have to call the office to get a tow truck, which I'm told may take an hour to get there. This means I'll have to stay an extra hour to get the rest of the packages delivered. Pretty obviously, I'm absolutely livid at this point, cursing up a storm in my car. Well, down the driveway comes a man who doesn't look very happy. He throws up his arms in that "what are you doing" pose, which just makes me more mad. I get out and snap him a "can I help you?" He snaps back at me with a "what are you doing blocking my driveway?" This is where I freaked up. I'm usually very calm and polite with customers, no matter how rude they are to me, but today I just couldn't control myself, and I say, "Well, it looks like someone was too lazy to shovel the snow on their driveway in their yard, and instead piled it in the street." The man gets red in the face and looks like he's going to scream at me, but takes a deep breath and says, "My son shoveled this for me." Without even thinking about it, I respond, "Well, your son is a frickin' moron." I again expect him to yell at me, which in hindsight is exactly what I wanted him to do. Instead, he stumbles back like I struck him, and I see tears start to pour from his eyes. He immediately turns and half runs up the driveway, and I can see he's sobbing. I instantly feel confused and extremely guilty, because mailman or not, there's no reason for me to speak to him that way. So pretty quickly I follow him up the driveway where I see their cars parked. On both of the back windshields is a sticker of a boy with text on top and bottom that says, using a fake name, "R.I.P. Riley, we'll miss you, 2008 to 2025. I feel like I was slapped in the face. Their child had passed 2 weeks ago. I walk to their door in a daze and knock. Both parents answer, a mix of fury and anguish on their faces. That's when the stress and exhaustion from the past 3 months and the intense guilt I was feeling hit me like a brick wall. I dropped to my knees and began to cry, trying to tell them I was sorry in between sobs. To my astonishment, both parents dropped next to me, wrapped me in a hug, and started to cry with me. We stayed like that for a few minutes until I got my crying under control, and I told them why I was so angry and how sorry I was. The dad put his hand on my shoulder and told me he forgave me, which brought on more tears. We introduced ourselves and talked for a bit, but eventually I had to go wait for the tow truck in my car. But as I was waiting, they both came out with winter gear and snow shovels. They were offering to dig me out, which I vehemently refused. I told them I didn't at all deserve their help, but the mother told me I cleaned up my son's messes for 16 years because I'm his mother. That doesn't just stop because he passed, which caused me to cry even more. They eventually got me out, and I exchanged phone numbers with them and told them I'd invite them over for dinner later this week. They accepted, and now my wife and I are going to cook them a veritable feast this coming Saturday. Trauma bonding is a very powerful thing. I don't think there's a single person listening to this or reading this that hasn't done something crazy, irrational, impulsive in a fit of anger or rage. So, zero judgment for the blow up. Obviously, they weren't in the best of spirits either, but through that, you were able to connect and make friends. So, I think that this has a very happy ending despite how hostile it started. Zenim replied, "A mistake done when in a stressed day pales in comparison to the immensity of your soul in being able to sympathize and share your heart with them. You're a good and kind person, OP. Not everyone would think about the dad who went back home crying. You done good in the end. That's what matters." Heat 200 responded, "This was worth the read. Honestly, it's easy to lash back and forth in the heat of things, but sometimes just falling into a deeper level of understanding out of empathy, it really opens you up to important and impactful moments. Thanks for sharing." Our next story is, "Today I effed up by hissing at the goose. I'm visiting my cousin and the neighbor's large farm goose has been hissing and following me. Auntie said this is normal because he's a guard goose and trying to protect his 3 wives from strangers. I hissed back and clapped hands in his direction. He responded by lowering his head and charging at me like a torpedo. He was biting me and beating me with his wings. My limbs are different shades of red and blue and have tiny teeth and beak marks. Yes, geese have teeth. And when he bit, he twisted his head left and right for more damage. He He whipped me with wings, and this hurt more, and wings move too fast to catch them. I tried to make him stop by grabbing his neck, but his neck is too long and he twisted his neck to bite my finger and wouldn't let go. Under my fingernail is turning dark like blood under the skin. Other geese screamed and celebrated. Aunt saved me, and the goose returned to his wives and screamed like a dinosaur to celebrate victory. Okay, what the heck did we just read here? I mean, it sounds like this bird is like a trained assassin or something. Got a pretty solid moveset. So OP, I'm glad you're okay. I'm also glad you learned your lesson. Don't mess with those geese, man. Hispanic at the bistro responded, honestly, if my finances and mental health allow it, I would rather have a goose guarding my house than a dog. You can bribe dogs with treats, or if they're just soft-natured, generally they might not kick up a fuss. Imagine you break into a living room, it's mostly dark inside, save some light from the street, and all you see is a serpentine neck with a beak rise up, followed by hissing and honking and the inevitable mauling. Our next story is, today I effed up by accidentally flirting with a teenager. So there's this girl I sit next to in my college biology class. I got the vibe that she thought I was cool on the first day. Today I had a conversation with her in the library and gave her my number, saying, "Nice talking to you," at the end. During the conversation, she mentioned being a dual enrollment student, and I didn't know what that meant. I looked it up after I got home, and it means she's a high school student. I'm concerned that I could get into trouble with a counselor or parent for this. I plan on apologizing the next time I see her in class the day after tomorrow. The only flirtatious thing I did was give her my number, and I didn't say anything weird. Yeah, it's a slippery slope not worth embarking on, my friend. Obviously, the older you get, the less those kind of age gap things matter, but there is a hard, fast line in the law that defines adult and child, and believe me, you don't want to cross over that line. So just leave it alone. You know, if you really like her that much, maybe revisit it in a few years. But for right now, I wouldn't even draw attention to it. Just, move on. Business as usual, but don't flirt with her anymore. Two Short Planks responded, apologizing is going to seem weirder than just leaving it alone. If she contacts you again, literally just say that you're sorry you didn't realize she was in high school. On that note, in my first year at university, a guy who lived across from me was dating a girl in high school, and she was older than he was. She was 18 and he was 17. Depending on the relative ages of the two of you, it may be fine. Our next story is, today I effed up by telling my friend I got rejected a few times last year. I admit I shouldn't share these things, especially with woman friends, but I did. In 2024, I, 26-year-old male, got rejected 5 times by women I asked out. Never had a girlfriend, and recently I lost my V-card to escorts after last year's failure. It wasn't an epic fail though. 5 rejections in a year doesn't seem like a lot to me. A month? Sure, but not a year. Still, my woman friend is acting like it's an insane amount. After telling her this, she says she's never heard of someone getting rejected so many times in 1 year. While I don't understand why she thinks 5 is a huge number of rejections, I do understand not to share everything. The only embarrassing thing, I didn't even tell her this part, is that I got reported to HR once by one of the women I asked out, and that's actually why I stopped and hired an escort. Situations like this are why, that big admonition is out there. You should not mix business with pleasure, as they say. Don't hit on coworkers. Don't put the moves on coworkers, because then HR gets involved. It's just a very easy narrative to twist, and quite frankly, it's not worth it. So I don't think that 5 rejections is, anything too red flaggy, but yeah, stay away from the gals at work. Resar responded, I think a lot of women don't necessarily conceptualize, because they're used to being asked out rather than asking anyone themselves, that you gotta shoot your shot knowing that 80% of the time it's going to be a no, especially outside of dating apps where there's a baseline expectation that you're looking for a romantic connection. Not throwing shade or any misogynist BS, it's just a perspective thing. 5 times really isn't a lot, and as long as you're being respectful and taking your no's gracefully, you're gonna be fine. And yeah, best to avoid the work stuff, as others have said. Our next story is, today I effed up by eating 8 fiber bars in 1 sitting. Honestly, I just am lazy, plus the flavor of the cinnamon fiber square one. To be quite frank, they're addicting for me. Thought, oh, whatever, the fiber won't be that bad. Wrong, bench! Been farting all night and waking up from cramps, and now have been seated at the toilet since 4:25 a.m. It's now 4:50. dropping gassier farts more akin to bombs than anything else. It's actually insane to explain because until you've experienced it, which I hope you never do, you'll never know how gassy you get. And doing this in a college dorm's communal bathroom personally is heck. At least it's 4:50 a.m. No craps yet, but that'll be coming soon for sure. Have a full day of work and classes today and a midterm tomorrow. High-key very worried about that because I do not want to A, crap my pants, or B, skip my commitments because I've been crapping non-stop. Oh, and did I forget to mention, I live in a one-room double with a roommate? Yeah, not the brightest idea in retrospect, and I would say I learned my lesson, but last time I ate 6 of these bars, back in December, and said I'd never do it again, and look where I am now. I mean, honestly, what is there to unpack here? You ate way too much fiber, now you got the runs, everybody's been there. Condolences, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Silverwick responded, I worked as a cashier in a big grocery store when Fiber 1 bars first came out. The sample people went around and gave each of us a coupon for a free box, so pretty much all of us bought a box over the weekend. When I came to work on Monday, every single one of us was farting during our whole shift. We all called them fart bars after that, and I still call them that to this day. Our next story is, today I effed up by going to the bathroom before an important meeting. Going to change a lot of the details because this is quite embarrassing, shaking my head. So today at work, I had an important presentation to deliver to the big bosses. I had worked on it all weekend and practiced. I even got a new outfit. The wife loved it. First time actually wearing khaki pants, and that's part of the freak up. Also, now that I think about it, the meal in the morning and coffee was not a good idea. So 30 minutes before the meeting, I felt that I needed to take a crap. I was like, well, I have some time. Nothing out of the ordinary, got to the bathroom and went into one of the stalls. Sat down to do the deed. Pulled my phone out to doom scroll. First thing was letting out a leak, and as I was scrolling, I felt something warm down my leg. And then I freaking realized that for some reason, I was peeing all weird. For some reason, it shot up and the pee went down all over the back of my pants. I was like, no! I freaking panicked and dropped my phone and pushed my deck downwards, but it was too late. I had literally soaked my pants. Like, it was bad. I tried to dry it off with TP, but it only made it worse with the TP all over my pants. I had to message my boss and tell him I had an emergency. I waited for like an hour in the bathroom and then sneaked out to go home. Boss has been calling me to ask what happened. Ugh, fudge me. You've got to be honest with your boss here. I mean, I think any other excuse that you would come up with to perhaps hide your shame, I don't think that it would work. I just don't. Just tell him like you had an accident in the bathroom and you couldn't come in, and to please keep it between you and boss. I mean, look, again, one of those things, everybody's been there. Everyone's had kind of some weird things happen in the bathroom unexpectedly. Just makes you human. Commander Demander replied, well, I assume there is a lot of pee, but the best approach in this scenario is to use friction. Take your pants off and vigorously rub the fabric on either side until it heats up. It won't take too long before it evaporates. If it's a denim-like, you can get a good amount of friction and heat the material up significantly and burn away at least most of the liquid. Thinner fabrics hold less and will respond well. I have no clue how much we're talking about here, but I've accidentally splashed myself and this works. Okay guys, with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to drop a like and comment below. And if you want to check out any of our other videos, click the video on the right. With that being said, I will see you all next time.